Hello, welcome to the Philosophy Web. My name is Taylor. This is Cole. That is Chris. This is Eric. And this is Ayla. And today we are going to be talking about God. Does he exist? Does she exist? Does it exist?
Does it exist?
Do
they
what
exist?
Today we are in my friend's apartment. Well, that friend. And, this is going to be leading up to a question that Eric had later on in the next video, so be sure to stay tuned for that.
Later on. Ignore the fact that these plates of food are empty and will be full in the next episode.
Exactly. Okay, what I was saying was, the idea our universe might even just be, an atom, a single atom somewhere else. Oh, right, that was what it was. It wasn't cells, it was atoms.
Yeah, well, that was kind of based off of Chris's idea, right?
Yeah.
If you zoomed in on the world enough, this
you
is
might
obviously
find
just
another
a theory.
world.
Yeah. This is just a theory.
Zoom in enough
weird
on an atom and
theory,
it's an
but-
entire
and
universe.
you just find the exact same thing.
You
Yeah.
think God would have created all of that if it were?
Are we going to bring up the similarities of that idea to Acnologia, fairy tale?
Please, no.
We're not talking about anime. No anime.
Oh.
To answer Taylor's question, I think it could potentially, but it could also explain something else entirely too. I think maybe the universe just exists for the sake of existing. It just kind of is because it can be.
This is something that requires it's something that I recognize only as a argument of blind faith, but I believe that the world is way too complex to just exist for the sake of it exists because it does.
But if you take it from another frame of mind of someone who's way smarter than us, it's really simple.
Just sitting up there, they're overthinking this shit. What are they doing?
Our world did kind of evolve from simplicity. I mean, in the future conversation that happens, I remember there was something that came up about, how, with animals, it's all about survival and, getting what you need. For us today, it still is that.
Yeah,
but,
it hasn't changed.
But, as our way of communicating has gotten more complex, it's gotten more complicated to be able to get food.
Able to survive.
Yeah, because we gotta work it out with places of business to get our money. We gotta take that money, bring it to people. We're taxed.
It's gotten to the point where it's not that every one of us omnivores needs to personally kill something and devour its flesh to get food. We've become smart enough to figure out a system that we can that we can make our everyone's collective lives better through the concept of specialization.
It could be that we got more smart, or if you look at it from another viewpoint. Yeah, jeez, wow. If you look at it from another viewpoint, we could have just overly complicated things too. Because in the end, at the beginning, humans were living their lives to live and trying to keep surviving. Today, we're still doing the same thing, but with all of this more complicated stuff than just live in the wilderness, get food happening. We just kind of overcomplicated the entire process as we as our brains evolved and as we communicated more. It is sort of a natural progression that I don't think that any higher power needed to intervene in. It's just we kept changing, so we kept changing the world around us.
Does anybody want to talk about how ethics would work with and without God?
There needed to be a symbol in order to help enforce ethics. When we became more aware, when we became more human, I guess. And for that symbol, they could have chosen a god, but they could have chosen something else too, I think.
The thing is that when you have in order to enforce ethical beliefs, you have to have a foundation for them, and many times God becomes the best foundation that you can really come up with because a lot of people believe that there are no natural ethics, but if you have or natural morals. If you have a god, then if you have an ethical or moral dilemma, you just have to consult God, and then your problems are solved.
On that point, I will facet that this was not original thought by me at all. I'd heard it from someone else. A point on the idea of, just inherent ethics a quote from Terminator 2 actually just brings up that point really well. Wherein, like, little John Connor is going up to the Terminator and he's like, hey, you can't kill people. And the Terminator's like, why? And he's like, you just can't. And he's like, why can't you kill people? What is wrong with that? And he's just like, it's just something you shouldn't do. Like, I feel like, what is the reason? Like, there is no... Like, some people like to argue that religion created ethics to force their... Like, religion exists to force there to be a reason for why bad things are bad. If you don't believe in a higher power, if you have people using the idea of a higher power to force their ethics, that of course brings up opportunities for corruption. Like you had brought up in the argument, or in the discussion that we had where we didn't get video of it. If we do something wrong, how is that going to change us?
I know.
And that is the ultimate question of religion.
Sort of going to the idea of God. The idea of God definitely exists in the way that it's an idea that's in people's heads. Just like the idea of a girl that's interested in me exists within my own head.
Wow.
That's so sad.
Oh, yeah.
Prince is single, ladies. Hit him up.
Yeah.
Please do, in fact.
Please.
If I were a girl, I would... Anyway.
But yeah,
I would set Chris up with my hot friend if I was a girl.
but yeah, jokes aside,
That's what you were
like
saying.
That's what I was saying.
I kind of made that connection, but like, sort of, yeah, the idea exists, like, but I'm not sure that the physical thing does, and like, going back to the symbols, like, when, like, with the primeval sort of religions, like, it's like, we are humans. We seem to be, like, the most sophisticated things in the planet. What could have created us? Big human. That's sort of it.
You know, before there was, like, the Christian God, there was, Greek and Roman gods.
I'm gonna stop.
And, you know, they
Hold it over there.
had a different god for different things. There's Artemis, Zeus, Aphrodite, like, everything had a god. And I'm starting to think maybe it's more of the we can't control these things, so what's controlling them? It's like not that that's like the whole reason that there's a religion, but like something in society that we still see today is a lot of things are done as a form of control over others. Like even if we don't mean to, we still try to control others in a certain way, like to get what we want. So although I cannot say for sure how religion started at all, like just the idea that there is something controlling the things that we cannot is a peace of mind to us. Like it's something that just like eases our, because if you really think about it, the idea that the earth shakes and destroys everything, like with the earthquake that happened in South Korea today, like it shakes and destroys things. We have no control over that. That's like a terrifying thought. It could happen at any time. Like, just things like that. So it's just more comforting to know that something is inflicting it upon us than it is to think this is just happening.
The thing with God is that a lot of people like to think that God is supposed to be solely focused on them and the human race in general, when that doesn't necessarily have to be true. God may have well created us, but God also created supposedly the universe and the earth, and so he has a lot of other shit to do. So humans might not be his first priority. So like I don't think it's necessary that like an earthquake could happen, but God might not be watching the earth, or maybe God thought that those people should die.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. Maybe God didn't care. Maybe God was like, okay, my earth did this thing, nothing's perfect.
Yeah.
God would be looking down on us from a different perspective than us experiencing life and thinking of God.
Yeah. I mean, well, a lot of the times I have friends that are very religious. My grandmother is extremely religious. Like, whenever something happens that's out of their control, they turn to God. Because God, like, from what I've heard from other people and from what I understand, God has a plan that is set for everybody. So when something doesn't go the way they want it to, or if something happens, like if you get in a car accident, it's normally, but you turn to God when bad things happen because it's comforting to know that you can put your faith in something outside of our world and hope that everything will be okay. It's a comforting thing.
So what you're saying is you would think it stemmed from essentially, it is a way to make sure that people feel like everything is going to work out for the best.
Yeah, it's like a sense of security. It's like a security blanket.
Had a lot of pro-God talk for a while, so let's switch it over to one of the best atheist arguments. Does believing in God keep the human race from progressing? Because, as we know, science and God don't usually mix very well.
I don't think that it's that it's religion that keeps the human race from progressing. Sorry, I feel like it's more like the way some people interpret it.
The guy who worked with biology, Mendel, I think.
He was a pope.
Yeah.
He was a pope.
There have been many of the greatest minds in, I don't want to say many of the greatest, but many of the great minds who have brought our society forward were men of God. People who are religious, trying to get a better understanding of God, is what brings us to a greater understanding of the world around us.
I'll go ahead and say that also. I don't think believing in a God necessarily holds us back. Also, Darwin was really religious.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, no, Darwin really hated what he was finding. I think that people are just resistant to change. When a human encounters a viewpoint that is contrary to what they believe and what they hold as their most core values, it triggers the fight or flight response. As assuredly as if they'd been attacked physically. When your world is shaken by something, it's within human nature to lash out and to shout down and to try to disprove and to deny. The same is true, say, if you find a belief that, if you find a scientific fact that violates your beliefs, or if you encounter a culture that violates aspects of your culture, it's within humans to lash out at that, and to try to kill it.
But science is a relatively new idea.
Science is a newer idea than your religious beliefs, and since science rapidly changes what's around, and can say, I proved this with math instead of I proved this because I'm going to hit you with a stick otherwise. Although science can do that too.
Yeah. You know how hockey works.
Yeah. So, with science, that's when people encounter something different, they try to kill it. I don't think believing in a religion necessarily means that's the case. I think when people discover, say, global warming or something like that, they'll just say, I don't like that, and they will try to shout down or stamp out or kill anyone who is saying those things, and that will just be humans, maybe forever.
Even if a god exists, a society will create something that they worship to the point of, as if it were a deity. Not necessarily that they're all powerful, but they are something to respect and hold as a greater standard.
Like the Kardashians.
Yeah. As an Armenian, I resent and appreciate that.
All agreed that religion is not what makes humans pieces of shit.
If someone wants to be a piece of shit, they're just going to be a piece of shit.
If you're using the Bible to justify you going again, you doing something that's not seen as okay, then you're not understanding.
You can do the same thing with a political party, with a particularly well-known scientist or public figure.
What if the Bible says that it's okay for that not okay thing to be okay?
I've heard a lot of things. I've never read the Bible front to back.
The interesting thing about that is people are the Bible is law, it's written by God, we have to follow it.
Yeah,
but then
that's
at
the problem, yeah.
At the same time, they're like, but this stuff is outdated, even though God wrote
I
it.
actually
It's weird.
have a point on that. Like, what happened was, with, like, for the Bible, what happened was, there were indeed laws based on, like, what people believe is that these laws were based around problems of the time. For example, part of the reason that pork was barred is because what people had no idea of knowing was pigs share very similar DNA with humans, and as such, diseases that you could get from a pig, like, you could get diseases through eating pig, especially because we didn't really have the ability to properly burn these things out.
Same with shellfish, and also the reason that you're not supposed to eat pigs in Jewish tradition is because early Jews lived in the desert. You raise pigs in the desert, it's a bad idea. You put a lot more work into them than what you're going to get out of them in food and stuff like that. You'll die. So
And also, that comes to the argument that I had made a little bit earlier on the idea of there being, like, religion being a dichotomy where people are either good 100% or bad 100%, which is a misconception I see people having, wherein, like, there's also the idea of if you mess something up and you do something wrong according to these laws, there is a way of forgiveness. For example, back in the Old Testament, the means of forgiveness was sacrifice of, like, for example, some of your food or, like, an incense, or just giving something to God to apologize.
Animal, virgin.
And then in the New Testament, the idea became that Christ was humanity's sacrifice. And it's not, the idea isn't that do not do this ever, it's that, like, there were reasons for all of these rules being there at the time, and if you make a mistake with the rule, you're not just in the dirt, you can still get forgiveness, because God understands that people are gonna make mistakes.
I'm going to assume that it is not okay to do things on purpose. Would
Like-
you agree? Or would you say there are, like, gray areas?
It's like, I would say that there are definitely gray areas on the idea, because that means that there's the idea that you cannot better yourself. That is, like, what I feel a large part of, like, when I had mentioned it earlier, my idea of it being about change, and how do your mistakes change you and the world around you. If it's, like, if you do something on purpose, yes, it's bad. If you do something wrong 100% on purpose, yes, it's bad. But I do not think, like, there are some points where I will go away from this belief. For example, murder. But I am of the belief that it is definitely possible for you to better yourself. It's not about do you keep yourself from doing bad deeds. It's that when you do something bad, how are you going to let it affect you? Are you going to keep it up on that same path, or are you going to bring yourself towards good?
So, like, this may not actually be against Eric's argument in general, but this is a passage, because I'm not a Christian. So, like, this is a passage that I really enjoy.
Anyone here who is?
The New Testament. This is Matthew chapter 5. And who wants to read it?
I'll go for it.
Okay.
Actually, give it to Chris.
Sure.
There you go, perfect. Chris, read
geez.
it to the mic.
On adultery?
Yes.
Okay. You have heard that it was said, "You shall not commit adultery." But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell.
I enjoy that passage because nobody's ever cut off their body parts for those reasons.
Sharia law. They will cut off your hands for stealing because your hands were the ones stealing, and that's better than going to hell, is to cut off your hands. It's not you cutting off your hands, but also self-flagellation within the Catholic Church was a thing.
Was it?
Yes.
Okay, within the Catholic Church, but
it wasn't cutting off stuff, but you'd sin
Sharia
and
law,
you'd whip yourself.
Okay, Sharia law is also Muslim. I don't know much
that's
about
not
Sharia law, but it is Muslim and not Christian.
Yeah. Although Muslim does draw from Christian tradition a bit because it's in the line there.
I feel like this is such a douchey cop-out argument like, I'm not trying to just avoid the question, but it really is that a large portion of the Bible was in metaphor, like, at least the preachings of Jesus were just him telling stories and speaking in metaphor. So it's unfortunately with this one, I don't think it's possible to know that he's just speaking in metaphor or not, but it's also just know that, like, after Jesus gave that speech, you didn't see a huge rise in people who followed Jesus cutting their limbs off. At least none that we know of.
Bible is a moral compass and should not be taken literally, and if you use it to control all of your decisions, then I don't know.
To me, that basically just says that, like, you don't really need the Bible. Like, I guess you can use it as, like, a guide, but, like, it's not, like, necessary, and, like, you can just kind of do what you want anyway, or do what you will, do it.
The book is not going to slap you on the wrist.
Ooh, I remembered a point I had a million years ago. I don't know if we have the time for it.